Hello, everybody, and welcome back to She's Game Obsessed. My 2-week hiatus is done with. We are here to review Week 13, and I have a special guest with me, Reno Jonny. I work with him over at Vegas Insider. He is just actually one of the better handicappers out there for sure. What's your record so far this year in the NFL?
We're at 61%, I think 60%. We are up. Man, if I didn't do preseason really killed me. I think I went 1-5 in the preseason. I usually typically go really scarce. 1-5. If I didn't go 1-5, I'd be really good. But still up there. 61%, up about I think 16, 17 units or so.
Nice. So, like I said, go ahead. His information will be down below. Go ahead, give him a follow, and always tail with his picks because he's crushing it. But we have some games that have happened this past week that are just, I think this past week was really exciting. We are in that push for the playoffs. Teams trying to make it, teams that definitely are going to make it, and they want to keep their records up. We'll start with two teams that both teams are on fire, especially as of late, and that is the Jets and the Vikings. The Vikings taking the W, but it was almost a Jets victory or overtime game. What were your thoughts on this game?
Going into it, I'm and this is maybe unpopular opinion. I'm not a believer in a couple teams.
Mm-hmm.
The New York teams, the Jets and the Giants. I'm not a believer that they're as good as their record indicates. On a side note, I've never seen a team turn on their quarterback quicker than the Jets have. They as soon as you said that comment, they have shirts made that with Mike White on them.
Yep.
That was to me like, oh, they're moving on. They don't want Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I think I think the AFC East is going to have some quarterback controversies in this offseason, Zach Wilson being one of them. And then there's lots of talk about Mac Jones too. So I think there's going to be some shakeups in the AFC East quarterback wise. I did think it was interesting though that they went with Mike White and not Joe Flacco, because Joe Flacco started off the season with a hot hand. So obviously there was something in practice that they believed in Mike White over Joe Flacco, and he's 2 weeks, 300 plus passing yards. So there's something there.
I still don't believe them. Look. I think they have a decent defense. We know that Sauce Gardner is one of the better shutdown corners. It's really rare. I think you saw with Jalen Ramsey, but really rare to see a cornerback come in from college and be pro ready and just dominate from the jump. Cornerbacks, who's probably, I would say, the hardest position outside of the quarterback position to kind of succeed in the NFL. He's coming in. He's been a monster.
Yeah.
No disrespect there. I think the defense is good.
The defense is not what cost them this game. What cost the Jets this game was their lack of red zone offense.
Correct.
Completely non-existent. Minnesota looked just like Minnesota. And we have the usual suspects, Dalvin Cook, Jay Jettas, who are on fire. Kirk Cousins is – I was not a believer in Kirk Cousins this season, and he has definitely proved me wrong. Some games were iffy, but it didn't come down to the Jets just being the normal Jets. It was solely their defense showed up, and that offense was not.
Yeah. When I look at the red zone, they had two chances to win the game. Yep. They had two chances to win the game. They just couldn't do it. And that, to me, was what cost them ultimately. You look at the Vikings, and I saw something. Is it luck or skill? Because they've won like 8 games by 6 or less points. So they're winning these close games. I think the Vikings are going to be kind of in trouble too, because you can't – I feel like they play to their competition. And that's usually when teams play in those one close games that are winning it. That means that you're playing to your competition. You're not beating the teams by a lot that you should be. And teams that maybe you should have lost to, you're still playing up to that competition. I think that's a dangerous recipe in the playoffs, because if you have a bad game where you're not just playing, you're just having a bad game, you're done. So I think that's a very dangerous recipe.
I completely agree. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's luck for the Jets. You could some games say that there was some luck in it. I would say it's skill, and it's skill solely for the fact that this is a very young team, and I think they are working solely with what they have, and they're producing what they can with this team.
And don't forget Breece Hall. I mean, Breece Hall he was running really well, and really provided they could run the ball, and some team like the Titans could run the ball very well, and find success. And he gets hurt with the injury. and you got to go in your backups. And he's not bad. He's just not going to be the same dynamic that Breece Hall was bringing into the offense.
That's the running back plague across the league. A couple notable teams, 49ers and the Ravens. I know that they have Christian McCaffrey, but it's unfortunately inevitable till I think Christian McCaffrey's hurt. And even the Giants, there's a running back plague of, I think they're just being overused or too many injuries are occurring in their running back room. And the Jets are definitely going to be one of those teams that I think suffers from that. But
yeah, but when in looking ahead, if you look at the Vikings, what they have ahead, one, they're going to clinch the playoff here. They probably can clinch it here within the next couple of weeks. But they have the Lions, the Colts, the Giants, the Packers, and the Bears. Like they have 5 very, very winnable games.
yep.
Actually, the underdog this week in Detroit by a point.
They were going to clinch the playoffs with a win against the Jets and a Lions loss. So I think it is an absolute must win this week for.
I really think they're going to clinch no matter what. They're going to clinch something. They're going to win that division.
Oh, yeah.
I think now it's a race for it's them and in the NFC, like they're and the Eagles for the number 1 overall, right? So I think you're at an interesting spot because typically teams that win or clinch, they kind of stop playing. But now you have 2 teams still fighting for that number 1 overall spot. So you're going to have these 2 teams kind of playing until they can clinch that.
I wouldn't be shocked, and putting this out there now before spots are clinched and solidified, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Vikings take number 1 because, yes, the Eagles are on fire and they are a great team. I think they came out so hot in the beginning. 18 weeks is a lot of gameplay, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them slow down some, whereas the Vikings have seemed to keep the same level of play throughout the season. Obviously, that massive loss at the beginning of the year to the Eagles, they seem to have vastly improved from that as well. So I wouldn't be shocked to see the Vikings take the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think for me though, it's the Eagles' defense. I mean, I think they can put up a lot of points, but their defenses look susceptible to the run, to the pass. They've let up a lot of points, so they're winning games. They're winning higher scoring games. And so I think that's a factor there. I mean, you said the same with the Cowboys. I mean, they're winning games too, but they're still allowing about 29 to the Bears, 19 to the Colts. They're allowing points, so
they have
defense is going to be an issue.
Scary defense on the Cowboys. I would not want to be a quarterback with either DeMarcus Lawrence or Micah Parsons coming at me. I say that every week, and
so here's the thing though, because I am a Cowboys fan, loosely right. I'm a fan who makes the money, but with the Cowboys, I see a team that they give up yards, they give up points. They do. They teams can move the ball against them. They actually can run the ball against them. 29 points against the Bears. You know, they allowed 19 last week. It was 21-19 going into the fourth quarter. They get a lot of points off turnovers, though. They can force some sack fumble touchdowns, some interception touchdowns, and that's kind of why their defense becomes so ferocious. Micah against the Vikings, Micah Parsons, third down and first on the first drive, sack fumble, game gets going. But their defense is susceptible. They just have the bigger plays to make them look like, oh, they're a crazy good defense. But when you look at like overall defense, to me, it's still the Niners is far and above the best defense in the NFL.
We're going to be talking about them coming up. That was a good game. But moving on to the next game I want to talk about is the Giants and the Commanders, which ended in a tie, which coincidentally ended in a tie in week 13 back in 1997. And I just, there's something that sticks out about week 13 for the Commanders because I'm pretty sure the Alex Smith injury was also week 13, which was a shadow of, I just blanked on the quarterback who also had the identical injury in the same week. I don't know why.
Theismann, yeah.
And I just want to say, I think that was all week 13. So the Commanders have some weird juju for week 13. So this game, I'm upset for the Commanders. The Commanders should have won this game. There is no reason that the Giants and them should have scored. This was Commanders game all the way.
I thought so too. They were up 10-0. I was like, ooh, because I was on them. They were actually an official play. Did not lose the play because I actually took the money line. I pushed. The tie gave me a push, which is crazy because that never happens in the NFL. Especially when I'm on a money line and they're going to tie. I had a feel. I didn't know what the win was like. I wasn't listening to the game. I was watching another game, listening to another game, watching him, and I was like, man, they were in field goal range at the first time. They didn't kick it, so the wind's got to be a factor. They had to take the kick the next time just because there was no time left. You could tell it would have been good. The wind knocked it down.
Yeah.
It was a game where I actually think I think the Commanders are a better football team.
Agreed.
I think they might have one of the better top 3, in my opinion, front sevens. That's without Chase Young. And so when he comes back, that front seven is really scary. I like their offense. They found an identity behind Brian Robinson.
Yes, absolutely.
I think they found their quarterback. They like playing with him. I love McLaurin. They have a good offense. I think it's a way better team than the Giants.
So I completely agree with you. They found their quarterback, and so flashback to a few weeks when Ron Rivera was asked, "What's your issue? Why are you struggling versus the other NFC East teams?" And his simple response was, "Our quarterback." All that led me to believe, when he said that answer, is he never wanted Carson Wentz. It was higher ups that made Carson Wentz come in. He wanted to roll with Heineke, and with Wentz out and Heineke playing, I think it's Ron Rivera's almost like middle finger of, I was right, you guys were wrong.
Yeah.
The only real issue why the Commanders couldn't pull off the W in this game is their penalties. They had 56 yards of penalties. You can't do that, especially in a division game where that tie put them in 8th in the NFC while the Giants stayed at 6th. So you can't do that.
So I look at that game. So a couple of things. I actually like Carson Wentz. I do. If I look at Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz, to me, very similar quarterbacks. One difference is Heineke's a little bit more mobile. But when he gets under center, the team, they love Heineke. He's already been there, right? So they rally around him every single time. I think he's got a good rapport with Terry McLaurin. He's got Curtis Samuel he does well with. They have 3 running backs that they could use. Brian Robinson's become the feature back, but McKissick, Gibson could all be out of the backfield in the passing game. I think they have a lot. I don't know if he really just didn't like Carson Wentz, and that's not who we want. And we see that across the league. Sometimes coaches this is who you're going to play. This is who we're getting him in. You're going to coach him, which is unfortunate. But I think he definitely likes Taylor Heineke. That's the guy. That's the guy. That's the future for that. That is their guy in the next couple of years.
The one dynamic I love regarding this Commanders offense is Terry McLaurin, obviously number one target, and other defenses are going to know that. And it was sneaky of them to get Curtis Samuel, because Curtis Samuel is like a silent weapon for them, and I love it. As for the Giants, the unfortunate thing, as I mentioned him earlier, is Saquon. I think he is slowing down, and it is massively for being overused. Their wide receiver core is thin, very thin, and that's loosely using that word.
They don't have a wide receiver. I can't. Kenny Golladay, Slayton.
Yeah,
I mean that's their guys.
I think that we look at Danny Dimes and Saquon using their legs a lot in games, and unfortunately, that's going to tire both of them out. But Saquon definitely looks like he's going down.
So I look at the unpopular opinion, and I have them from time to time, but I don't know. I just have these opinions, and I use them in my sports betting, and it works. I think Saquon Barkley's been overrated since he's been in the league. If you look at his first couple of years, he'd have a game of 150 yards, and people are like, "Oh, that's what you see." You would see 22 carries, 155 yards. Cool. You'd see he'd have one run for 86, 21 for the other 45. And he would do that. If you look at his early yards, he had a big games, but every time he had that one run. He just had that one run, and everything else was he was stopped. Okay, one big run. He was stopped. So I thought, to me, yeah, he was killed it, right? Out of the pass game was where I thought he was really effective. Get him in the pass game. Other than that, he can't stay healthy. And so when he can't stay healthy, that's an issue for him. But when you look at the NFC East, okay, let's just say that the Giants, Danny Dimes is their guy. They get a couple of receivers, and Saquon stays healthy. Kayvon Thibodeau on defense. It's not a bad team. Not a bad future. Look at the Commanders. Good defensive front. Taylor Heineke, Terry McLaurin. They got a good future. Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Good defense. Michael Parsons. Jalen Hurts on the Eagles. Good defense. Like, the NFC East is like It's going to be the gauntlet in a couple years.
Us that we want it. That's what I say every week.
Yeah.
Okay, so because the big talks now, Odell, 2 teams, Cowboys or Giants. Where is it happening? Where is it going?
So if he's a talented guy. Now it's a trade-off, right? Because you're gonna get some. I don't know if I can curse on this show. You're gonna get some shit.
You can't.
You're gonna get some shit, right? So is the shit you're gonna have to put up with on the side worth what he's bringing in? I say yes. Some people will be like, no, it's too much. I say deal with it, right? Like he's coming in, he's gonna have some antics. He's probably gonna talk some crap to people and do different things. That happens. I think he's worth the talent. I think if you talk about the Giants need him. I mean, Cowboys don't need him.
I would love to see Brian Daboll because Daboll, in my opinion, coach of the year. I think he came in, and whether or not that the Giants, like you were saying that you don't think they're as good as their record shows, which I could agree with, but he seems to envision just that. I hate to use this word, but the vibe of Giants football, and he loves playing ugly football.
He does.
I think it would be interesting to watch Odell come on and try to be loudmouth Odell and how Brian Daboll would intercept that.
I think Daboll, and I say this, and I don't hate anybody. I'm gonna hate him in a couple of years. As a Cowboy fan, he's just gonna annoy the crap because he is that fiery guy. Oh, he's a fiery coach. He'll argue a call. Now you look at the replay, like, yeah, it definitely was a penalty. He's out there arguing like he knows it's not a penalty. He's a fiery guy. He gets the fan base fired up, and so I think he's a good coach for New York because he is. If you talk about what embodies the New York Giants, he is that guy. So I think it's a good match for them.
I also really like. Everyone likes to talk about, oh, this coach, player's coach, this coach is a player's coach. I think Daboll is truly the player coach because in this past press conference, and I forget what the question was that they even asked him, but his response was, "Yep, that was on me. I made those plays. I told them to run those plays, run the ball that way, and that's me. I'm the one that did that." And that's a true player's coach. Like he showed up, and instead of being like, "Oh, us and the guys couldn't get it done," he flat out was just like, "Yeah, no, I messed that up. Totally me."
There was a but there was a game, the Cardinals game. Mm-hmm. There was a talk about how Cliff Kingsbury's kind of losing the losses and whatever, and their receiver took a nasty hit, and in my mind, and I coach high school level, and I'm like, you know what? In my mind, that's as a staff, we're on the field yelling at the refs because hey, that was a dirty hit. Protect the guy. Cliff Kingsbury doesn't do anything. He gets up. The receiver gets the penalty. Okay. I think Daboll, he's the guy that's going out for his players that, if he sees something, that's an opportunity. Like, hey, no, I'm going to make sure my player knows I'll take that penalty. Let me take the penalty. And I think that's what he does and provides for the Giants. I like him. Again, I'm going to hate him because he's going to be against the Cowboys for a couple years and it's going to suck, but he's a really good match for them. And I will say, I think they have a good trajectory on the upward. I just don't think they're there yet. But Kayvon Thibodeau, my goodness, Did you see that hit he put on? I think it was in the overtime. That hit on, or maybe it was right at the end of regulation, but on Taylor Heineke was gnarly. I can't believe Taylor Heineke hang on to the ball because that was bad.
Yeah. Yep. So you brought up Arizona Cardinals, and this is off topic, but this is a hot take that I've been thinking about lately. So obviously Arizona is not happy with Cliff Kingsbury, and there's obviously been some issues with Kyler. We can go back to that contract that he needs to study tape for a minimum of 4 hours. If I'm Arizona and I'm really going to look at wanting to clean house, I think those two guys I would want to leave. There are two notable. There's a coach and a quarterback that the coach has come out and said, I want to work with this quarterback. Sean Payton and Lamar Jackson go to the Cardinals. If that happened, would you like
it? So I believe that they're going to pay him in Baltimore. I believe he's going to be in Baltimore. I think the fans are going to uprise. And I am an Orioles fan. I am a diehard Orioles fan, and I'm just not. I like the Rams. I cheer for them. They're probably my second favorite team. I just grew up a Cowboys fan. But what I will say is in Baltimore, and I'm already sick of it talking about baseball, like we haven't made nothing happen in the offseason. We made Kyle Gibson. That's our big whatever. The Ravens are gonna riot if they don't make a big deal for Lamar Jackson. I think they're gonna sign him to a massive contract because I think they're gonna be under fire. Like they're gonna be like the city's gonna riot if we don't get these contracts done. So I think he stays. Now that's interesting though. Because if the Cardinals come in and they offer him a stupid contract and they go for Sean Payne, I think Cliff Kingsbury. Look, I don't think he's a good coach.
No,
I think he hasn't won. He didn't even win at Texas Tech. He had his claim to fame at Texas Tech is a couple of things. He had Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes on the same roster. He got them both to go there. And so he saw something in both those guys that eventually. Well, Patrick Mahomes, great career. Baker Mayfield won the Heisman. That's it.
One's way different than the other, though.
No, 100%. But at the college level, like Baker still won the Heisman, and then he had Patrick Mahomes going in the NFL. He saw something in those quarterbacks. That was it. But he didn't have a great record at Texas Tech. And so to me, to kind of get that head coaching job in the NFL, I'm like, he's probably going back to college. I think there's college opportunities that he's probably going to go pursue and do okay in. I just think the NFL. He doesn't. And look, the contract you can say, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that have never had that contract. Okay?
No.
Big Ben, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson. They're not going to put that in his contract because he knows the damn plays. I don't think Kyler Murray knows the plays. I really don't.
I completely agree. That's why it's just I've mentioned it in other podcasts and things on the
interesting.
I like it. I think it'd be a really cool thing. But back on topic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We talked about them briefly for a couple seconds earlier. That 49ers defense took on what seemed to be a steamrolling Dolphins team and really showed their true colors, taking it away with a massive victory. I have a lot of thoughts on this game, but I am totally curious on yours.
I first drive, I'm like, ooh, Dolphins are going to put up some points. I mean, they went down the field. They had a big play to Trent Sherfield, 65-yard or whatever it was, touchdown. I'm like, this might be a shootout because then the Niners start driving and they could put up a field goal. I'm like, and they're like 5 minutes to go, 7-3 already. I'm like, this might be one of those games. I do think the Niners defense is for real.
Nick,
I will say this: I'm tired of the slander of Jimmy Garoppolo. He has been fantastic as he has. I mean, look at his record as a starter. It's up there with Joe Montana and Steve Young. Okay, maybe not the numbers, but his record's up there. And people can say like he's just a game manager. Well, he's one hell of a game manager. They've had other quarterbacks that have gone to combine 8-29. Yeah. So he's done enough. Unfortunate. It's a broken foot. He's out for the year.
I was talking about this in the Vegas Insider office, and down here in South Florida, we have a couple of Dolphins fans in the office. It seems every single time Jimmy Garoppolo plays against the Dolphins, he's hurt. I look back at when he was in for Tom Brady during that suspension. Kiko Alonso tackled him, and I think it was broke or strained some major part of his elbow. The last time they played, I can't remember specifically what it was, but he went out hurt. And now this time the Dolphins broke his foot. So clearly it's just something the Dolphins, they're going after Jimmy G. But
that's great. It wasn't a dirty hit. It was
just running.
The way he landed on him and just, bad for him.
You're tired of the Jimmy G slander. And I completely agree with you. And I'm going to bring up one thing. At this current moment, the greatest coach in the NFL is Bill Belichick. Regardless of what's going on in New England right now, there's a massive reconstruction period, and that happens to teams. But he is regarded as the greatest coach in the NFL. He wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to be his quarterback, and that was the big controversy between him and Tom Brady. So I am tired of the slander because if Bill Belichick sees something, obviously there's something.
Look, I think he does. And the thing is, he has the talent in San Francisco. He's got a lot of talent. He's got Deebo Samuel. He's got Ayuk. He's got CMC. As long as he stays healthy, a fantastic defense. If you've never heard Bosa talk when he's mic'd up, it's actually kind of hilarious because probably one of the best players on any field he steps onto, and he doesn't talk like it. He's you can hear him in the huddle. He goes, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's go sack the quarterback." And then you just next play he goes and sacks the quarterback. I'm like, what the hell is that? How does he just so nonchalant about it? Right? A fantastic defense. I thought Brock Purdy did a fantastic job coming in. Here's what I will say: and people are like, "Oh, because Niner fans, right? Oh, we can still win it all." Brock Purdy is the truth. It's a lot different when you're coming in off the bench.
Yeah.
And making that start and just there's no expectations, there's no film out on you. They're probably calling plays that are going to be well within yourself. Use your weapons wisely. Now you have a whole week. I'm telling you, teams are looking at your college tape now they know exactly what you do, what your strengths, your weaknesses are. And they're going to look at that tape last week. There's tape out on you now, so it's not going to be as easy as a Cinderella ride. Who knows? Maybe he really is, the truth, and he comes out and he just does well. Be wary of it. I told us that I don't know. A Super Bowl will be, I think, is out of their reach now without Jimmy G. I think their defense. I think they'll get to the playoffs. They'll get a good seed. Top 4 seed, maybe. They're probably going to win. I think they can win their division. Maybe the Seahawks give them a little run for their money, but I think they still win their division. I do think they have enough pieces to make that happen. I think the Super Bowl aspirations have gone out the window. In my opinion, who knows?
Yeah, but my thoughts on this game, the 49ers looked good on both sides of the ball, even with their mishap with Jimmy G. My thoughts are on the Dolphins, and I just think that this is the McDaniels revenge game, but this game also really showed why McDaniels was underneath Shanahan, and I think that that's really the point to be made. Tua struggled bad. They played a good defense, which they haven't all year, and it really showed their true colors. They had a comeback effort to try to keep things close, but I don't think it was a good performance. It was sloppy, even with Tyreek Hill putting up massive numbers.
150 yards.
Yeah, even with those massive numbers, it was sloppy. And I think everyone was talking about Tua for MVP. I think that this is one thing to look at is you go into this game, one of the better defenses, realistically, one of the better teams in the NFL, and you crumbled. And that's what scares me about trying to push for him to be MVP. He hasn't shown it to me.
Yeah, I could see the MVP. When you look at what the Dolphins have done, it's not. Look, I think the best one was the Bills. They won it at home.
Yes.
That was the game. I think Tua did get hurt. That was the game he came back though, right?
Yes, that was the first infamous head back issue.
Yeah, that was terrible. Then he gets the Bengals take care of him. The Jets roll them, but that was with their third string quarterback Teddy Bridgewater got hurt in that game. They lose. Then you look at the good defense. They play good defense in the Dolphins. They lose that game. They fall behind to the Lions. Have to come back to win that game. They win by 3 versus the Bears, who don't have a good defense either. They beat the Browns. Okay, good job. They beat the Texans. They were up 30-0. And if you closing value, I always tell people closing value, because if you bet the Dolphins late, you can cover. They're minus 15.5. They won by 15. And then you play good defense to the Niners and you don't win. And you don't even come close. I think this team has problems. I do think that it was between two was in the conversation. For me, Jalen Hurts is the MVP. I think right now, I think that game might have kind of teared him up. I think Lamar Jackson would be in the conversation. Injuries, not his numbers haven't been great. Again, contract year, kind of saving himself a little bit. But I think for me, Jalen Hurts is far and above. It's either him or Mahomes at this point. Is what I'm
pick Lamar. Lamar, prior up until this past game with his knee injury, he was doing as good as he could with what he had. And not to say that he had a bad team around him. I just think that the Ravens are super discombobulated, and it looks as if no one knows the playbook, or there's not really there's a weird identity to the Ravens offense. And Lamar was working as well as he could with it, but I still wouldn't put him in MVP talks. But I that was a disgraceful game for the Dolphins, and I'm sure Dolphins fans feel that and understand it.
Bad showing.
Yeah, I don't.
Especially in that division, and that's the division's tough. If you're trying to win your division,
Yep.
you got the Bills that aren't losing games they should win, right? So it's one of those situations where you have like it's tick for tack. You have to keep winning because the second you don't, the Bills win again. Now you're a whole game and a half or 2 games behind the division. And look, Cowboys are having a really good season, but they are going to be in the wild card, and so it's different. You want to win your division, right? You want to be able to win your division and not be in a wild card position. I think the Dolphins are looking at wild card for sure. Again, they still got to win games. I mean, their defenses look shaky at times as well. I think we see a couple of good teams that defense has really been a problem, kind of a sore spot for them. And if they have a bad game on offense and their defense still does what defense does, it's not enough to overcome it. So Dolphins look. I will say I don't cheer for injuries, okay, but I did have a +4 Dolphins. I'm like, well, Brock Purdy, like I don't see him being able to keep up, and that was a mistake because they did better. They just rallied around the guy, right? Rallied around the skipper, and they made things happen. I think that's what I'm saying. The Niners are a good team. They're going to win some more games under Brock Purdy. Playoff time is going to be different. When your quarterback needs to make plays, needs to make throws, it might be a little different. Who knows? What if he takes them all away?
Yeah,
that'd be a story.
You mentioned really quick defense, and I want to hammer in on this Dolphins defense for 2 seconds before we get ready to move on. Poor showing, and the poor showing is I'm going to read a stat off to you. They had 4 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, and a pick. I don't know why in between any of those numbers, they couldn't do anything else. I love the Dolphins defense. I loved them last season and I loved them going into this season. And I have no idea that they made those plays, recorded those numbers, and then in between all of it just fell completely flat for me. And
it's kind of Cowboys, boom or bust, right? Make the big plays, but everything else is kind of trash. They're 17th overall in total defense, so they are just middle of the pack, mediocre defense. That's what they are. Now they're going to provide you the big plays. Cowboys, they're still top 5 overall, but if you look at the best defenses, it's the Niners. It's surprisingly it's the Eagles based on yards. They just allow points. And the Broncos. But I think you look at the Dolphins at 17th. They got to improve that, especially when it comes to playoff time. And then who knows? Again, Tua's seemed to struggle against those good defenses. And so I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but he's got to figure out a way to got to put games together against the topper echelon of defense.
Got to get it together. But moving on to the Super Bowl of that Sunday, and I call it that. I think it's an appropriate terminology for it. The Chiefs and the Bengals. Bengals walking away with another victory over Patrick Mahomes. And this is their 3rd straight win over Kansas City after defeating them twice this past January. Bengals came out strong, and it seemed like the Chiefs were coming back and it was going to go the Chiefs' way. And then the Bengals made that not happen. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 3 times in a year to beat Patrick Mahomes is it's a good year. And I will say this is the new Peyton Manning Tom Brady AFC rivalry.
Yes.
This is what it's become, especially now. You lost 3 times. Travis Kelce on the podcast already said this is the comeback. This is the revenge game that took us out of the playoffs. I think they beat them at the end of the regular season last year. A game that didn't mean a whole lot. It meant a lot to me because I was playing Jamar Chase in my fantasy championships, and that was the game that I already lost by halftime. Okay, I was done by 20 by halftime, and so that meant a lot. But yeah, so they won 3 times. I was on the Bengals this week. I saw this as an opportunity that I thought a lot of people were on the Chiefs. They thought, no way, lose again. And I look, it's the way the spread was. A lot of money was coming on Kansas City. It was 2.5. They were not getting off that 2.5. They were baiting in that Chiefs money. That Chiefs money was baited in. Didn't believe it. Didn't agree with it. I stuck it out with the Bengals. Jamar Chase was a full participant. I thought that was a good game. They've also been fantastic at home against the spread. They've been great. They have a great home crowd, which I think is a little underrated because when we talk about home crowds, talk about Seattle, talk about Kansas City. They don't talk about Cincinnati, and I think Cincinnati is one of the better home crowds in the NFL.
They were silent last year too, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, and so I enjoyed the game. I thought it was a good game. I thought it's also a preview of what probably happens in the AFC. I think it was weird. We saw it at the beginning of the year, right? We're like, oh, hangover, Bengals hangover. They didn't play well. They're 2-2, not playing a good brand of football. And we have been, since then they're 8-2. They're one of the top teams in the NFL. They're definitely making a run for the playoffs. If they can get Joe Mixon back healthy, out of concussion protocol, by then, at this point, if you're still winning games, try to keep him out, get him healthy for the playoffs. They're a scary team. I think the difference is, and I already said this, depending on what the line is, I always say something, but if they play the Chiefs in the playoffs and it's in Kansas City, I'm going to absolutely hammer the Chiefs.
Okay.
Hammer the Chiefs. If it's within 4, I'm going to hammer the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's where I think it's 3 times in a year is one thing. Are you going to beat them 4 straight times?
Mahomes has never lost to a quarterback 3 times. This was the first time.
And so now we're going to add another one? I don't think so. I'm going to hammer Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs if they play and it's within 4. I think that's going to play.
Here's my issue with the Chiefs. So offensively, they couldn't get Kelsey involved, and that was due to the Bengals' defense, and good for them. But the Chiefs miss Tyreek Hill. And I don't care how many people say, oh, that's not true. Da, 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 da. The Chiefs miss Tyreek Hill. And you can tell because he has no trusted receivers to throw to. Yes, he throws a lot to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but he had an up and down touchdown. And he's relying a lot on Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco, which the pass heavy Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is a passing quarterback, are using a run offense a lot more. So that's what's up for me.
They brought in Kadarius Toney. I thought it was a really good trade. I think he's not okay. I'm gonna say this. He's not Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
He's got Tyreek Hill speed though, and so he's able to kind of work into this offense that uses that ability really well. He gets hurt, and so you saw their offense kind of kick up a notch when they were able to use Kadarius Toney in different spots. I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He did drop a touchdown pass, right? It was right in his arms. You got to catch those. I don't know, what did Clyde Edwards-Helaire do? Because coming into the year, he was already the third running back.
Fantasy team. I wanted
him. He must have pissed somebody off because Pacheco is the number 1 guy. He is the number 1 back right now. You see it last couple weeks. He's getting more carries. He's getting more game time. What did Edwards-Helaire do to miss a spot? I don't even remember him being in a game and fumbling a couple.
He's also been dealing with an injury, maybe potentially. So
maybe. I look at this. I still believe yes, they missed Tyreek Hill 100%. I still think the Chiefs are. Patrick Mahomes is good enough to get everybody involved, and that's one thing. You can look at, yes, you need Kelsey, but he's been able, if Kelsey can kind of do some damage, even take a couple guys away, other people should be able to get open. I thought the Bills-Bengals just did good. I think what also is kind of been better for the Bengals is their offensive line. Yes. That was their biggest issue even last year, right? That he was always getting sacks. And I think they've done a better job this year. They picked up a couple guys, even the ex-Cowboy on the line, to be able to protect them a little bit better. And that's kind of what you need. Again, these two teams, both quarterbacks are signed for a minute. This is their future. And You're going to have a pretty good rivalry here between Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. You got Jamar Chase going to be signed for a minute. Like, you have a good. These are going to be primetime games for the next few years, and we're going to be kind of treated to a treat, if you will, every time they match up. Again, it's always going to be a pretty good spread. 3-4, depending on what's going on with the teams, but it's going to be a good matchup for us.
If the NFL could just make the Chiefs and Bengals a primetime game and never give us a Broncos primetime game again, I would be I can speak for probably everyone, all for it.
So I was saying, the NFL needs to figure out a way to start flexing games out mid-season.
Dude.
For me personally, I would have flexed out the Cowboys. It's a 10.5 point spread. Move them to like the 3 p.m. slot. Give me the Chiefs Bengals in prime time. You can kind of do that 2 weeks in advance. I think Monday games are slated. I think it's going to be harder to change those Monday games to Sunday, like switch days because travel plans, people buy tickets, all this kind of stuff, right? But I think you can start a couple weeks in advance. You can see like, hey, Bolt's not really having a great year. Probably not going to be a great game. Hey, this game right here is setting up to be nice. Start flexing games out. I think by week 3, I think the Broncos would have been flexed out at any time in prime time. Like, they would have been like, oh, you're not playing prime time.
But I should have seen Russell Wilson. There was no reason Russell Wilson should have been on my screen 5 separate prime time. Hey,
whoever number 98 is my personal hero. Because my personal hero. Look, I don't know what was said. I don't know. But I do know this is I was on them, and I've been on as a gambler. Great record. I have a great NFL record, but I've been on the Broncos more times than anybody should that's sane and not an alcoholic. Okay, because I was on them every week, and including that week, and I'm like, hell yeah, punch him! Like, I'm over here like, please hit him, push him. Like, I was so upset with him because he must have said something stupid. Like, he must have been like, let's ride. I'm like, oh man.
I also really appreciated on week 12. They played the Panthers, and his name is slipping me, but he is now forever my favorite player in the NFL. After he sacked Russell Wilson, he walked to the center of the field and did that stupid.
Yeah, he did. He did it in London, right? That was what he was doing that in London, I think. That was I'm not the guy could play football. He won a Super Bowl. He did.
Can he?
He won a Super Bowl. But at some point in time, you got paid $250 million. And here's the deal. You are playing your defense. There's a lot of guys on that defense that aren't, getting quarterback $250 million money. And they're holding they're doing their job. They're holding their end of the deal.
Yes, they are.
They brought you in thinking, hey, our defense is ready to win. We have a good running game. We got a couple young receivers and Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton coming on a make back here. And you come in, you're supposed to be that missing piece. And you could throw my grandma out there and she might have the same amount of points as you do.
For $250 million, they can sign me.
Yeah, I'll take $1 million. Let's get $1 million.
We'll do a fraction. Let's
$1 million. I'll put extra padding on. We'll be fine. But $250 million, you're gonna start pissing people off, and that's what's going on. You're just pissing people off because then you win a game. For me, and I was on him in this game too. I really was, and I was like, "You stupid son of a!" I was against the Jaguars, and they win that game, and he ends the interview like, "Let's ride." I was like, if I was there, I would hit you with the mic. I would have hit you with the mic, man, because you didn't beat a good team. You beat the Jaguars in London. Like, to me, it's a mess. The whole situation there's a mess because they did bring him in. This was the Peyton Manning situation. Bring him in. We're ready to win. And they were in Peyton Manning's year. Bring him in. Win a Super Bowl.
But Peyton Manning did, yeah.
This is not that situation. The thing is this: he's signed for $250 million for like 6 years. Or 7 years. Like, he's got a contract. And so I'm like, okay, now what? Because if this doesn't work out, you are not unloading that contract with anybody.
He has 6 more birthday parties that the Broncos team will show up to.
Oh man, to me that's insane. But okay.
Yes. So the next part of this is thirst down. It's a pun. Haha. Thirsty players. Haha. Who was your hottest player on the field? Again, this can be as literal or actual.
I'm
truthful.
comfortable with my sexuality, okay?
Okay.
Brock Purdy. With a name like Brock Purdy, oh yeah, the man was Purdy. He was throwing touchdown passes. He came in with poise. To me, I've got to give it to him because he came in and it's no expectations. Just go play football.
Yeah.
You've been playing this game since you were a kid, right? And at the end of the day, that's what this is. That's why, like, when I lose bets, I actually don't get upset. I will. Yeah, I want to win and stuff like that, but I've been betting for so long that losses happen. I know it's going to happen. Wins happen. I know it's going to happen. And these are kids, and I say that even though they're kids playing a game. Even 35-year-olds, they're just kids playing the game because that's what they've been doing their whole life. He kind of went out there and lost my bet. I lost my wager, but I was very impressed with what he did. It's interesting this week because now you actually have you're going to be at home again. So great, you don't got to travel. You stay home, and then you get to welcome in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers off of that big win. And it's only -3 for those that are interested in gambling because I think that if it was Jimmy G, it'd probably be around 6 or 7.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a very winnable game, and not just for Brock Purdy, but for the 49ers because I just have to say I think Tom Brady does retire. I hope he does, and it's a very sad thing that his last year of football is in this abomination of a team. But
before we get to, because I do want what you bring in Tom Brady up, there was a talk when he was like 38, 39. There's always a cliff. Yeah. That these quarterbacks they just go off the cliff. Tom Brady never reached it. He just kept going.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl year, Peyton Manning actually reached that cliff. If people don't remember that, but there was games where he was throwing for 105 yards. He was struggling. The Super Bowl, he threw for like 120 yards in the Super Bowl. Defense carried him to that victory. Whereas always this question is, when is this cliff going to happen for Tom Brady? It happened.
Yeah.
It happened in a hurry, and he just went off of it.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the defense to carry him like Peyton did. My thirst down of the week, he's been stellar for the last couple of weeks, but I have unfortunately it's fortunately, but unfortunately they don't show games over in Europe. I have not got to lay my eyes on him like I did this week, and that is Mr. Davante Adams, 8 receptions for 177 yards. He averaged 22 yards a reception and had 2 touchdowns. This is the 7th time this season that Adams has totaled at least 100 receiving yards, and the 4th time he has scored at least 2 touchdowns in a single game. It sucks that the Raiders are doing as poorly as they are. He is an absolute shining star, and it is a reason why Aaron Rodgers misses him so much.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are doing poorly because of Josh McDaniels. I think he's not a good coach. Good coordinator, not a good coach. I like Derek Carr, and if people are like, they gotta get rid of Derek Carr. Okay, then say goodbye to Davante Adams because people don't realize how close they are. They're best friends. The only reason Davante Adams is in Las Vegas is because Derek Carr is in Las Vegas. So you get rid of Derek Carr, you're gonna piss off Davante Adams.
I agree.
He's gonna be a disgruntled receiver now. He's gonna want out. So don't do that. He's there. Yeah. Maybe the coach needs to change. It's interesting to see what happens. I'm a big Derek Carr fan. I like what he provides because he really does care about winning. I love the relationship with Davante Adams. He is a phenomenal receiver. They have such good chemistry that I don't know. Even in Green Bay, the chemistry that he has with Derek Carr is unlike any other he's ever experienced in his playing career. So I think that they're going to be together for a while. But Davante Adams is just he's a monster. I would throw it to him. He'll get it.
Oh, it's like he just
he's a monster.
Uses the force and the ball just comes right to him.
That's it.
I personally, and this is maybe is personal. Derek Carr, I call him Guyliner because he always looks like he has eyeliner on. He's just somebody that gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't know why. So I'm not the biggest.
You know what, Derek Carr? I like Derek Carr. He's cool. From what I see, I'm a I'm an honorary Raiders fan, I guess. I love Vegas. So I'm always in Vegas. I'm from Reno, So Nevada's never had teams. That's growing up in Reno. I'm from Texas, born in Texas, but grew up in Reno, Nevada. Never had a football. They didn't have a football team. They had no baseball team, no basketball. They had nothing.
Nothing.
So when I grew up a Cowboys fan, Orioles fan. I lived in Baltimore for a little bit. I'm never changing that. So like when they got the hockey team, I'm like, okay, I'm a Knights fan. I had no hockey team. I just jumped on the Knights. They ended up being good from the get go. But football team, like I would cheer for. I have not been to a game yet at Allegiant. We'll make that happen here hopefully next year. So
yeah, it looks like a cool stadium.
But I actually like Vegas. I'm going to support anything Nevada teams just because, except UNLV. Except UNLV, it's all about the Wolfpack. That rivalry, I will never cheer for the Rebels. Perfect. All about the Wolfpack.
Got it. We now know. But to finish this off, I get some questions from people, and I tend to do these on a more rapid fire basis. The first one was, which you already praised him, so I think it will be an interesting continuation on. The question is, who is Brock Purdy? So who is he?
Iowa State, man. Look, Google up Iowa State, Brock Purdy. I watched him in college because watching UT a lot. They played it every year, so he was a great quarterback in college. A lot of times these quarterbacks kind of get unnoticed wherever he got drafted. He's Mr. Irrelevant, they call him. Drafted 262nd, but look up Iowa State, Google him. You'll be all right. You'll look up some good highlights.
I say, who is Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy is Mr. Irrelevant. But not only that, he is the first Mr. Irrelevant to ever score an NFL touchdown. So Mr. Irrelevant.
Is he really?
Yeah. He is pretty irrelevant. He is pretty relevant right now.
No, I did not know that. Look, you learn something every day.
Yep. So the next question is, and I hate this. I know why somebody asked this because I was all over Twitter yesterday about it. Do the 49ers go after Baker Mayfield? Absolutely not.
I'll just say yes. You know what? They went after Josh. They went after Josh Johnson. That's his third time with the team. I don't know. I don't know. Yes, I'll go. Yeah, I'll go after him.
All right. Well, we'll see.
For the season.
The next one, will the Ravens be okay without Lamar? And this is actually a good question because this next week they play the Steelers. Big game because the Bengals lost 2 times this season, you said, and both losses were to the Steelers, if I'm not mistaken, whereas the Ravens have 1 game up on the Steelers. Winning that second is big for the AFC North.
They will be okay. And this has nothing to do with what I think Lamar Jackson's a really skillful guy. I think they're going to pay him the money. I think he deserves the money.
Yep. I agree.
But I do think they're going to be okay. And the reason why is Huntley's kind of a similar quarterback to Lamar Jackson in his skill set. He's not going to be as explosive, obviously, but they can still try to implement what their offense is. So they'll be okay. They need Lamar Jackson though to really threaten in the AFC. But as far as will they be all right? I mean, it's not going to end. If you're looking for Super Bowl, you need Lamar Jackson. But I think they'll be okay.
And my own personal question, rapid fire: do they beat the Steelers this Sunday, or is TJ Watt coming back going to haunt them?
So I think the game's in Pittsburgh.
If I'm not mistaken, yes.
I think Pittsburgh. Look, I think Kenny Pickett and George Pickens are kind of finding something a little bit. TJ Watt is that defense. I don't know that defense.
Oh, they missed him.
We'll have to see if Michael Parsons ever misses a game, but a defense that's so reliant on TJ Watt. I mean, they are night and day.
You can say the team even because it's amazing. Yeah. The offense, all of a sudden, he came back and it was like, oh, offense.
Clicking.
I also just want to quickly point out Najee Harris's stiff arm this past week was ferocious.
Najee Harris is a beast.
Yes. And the last but not least, because you hadn't actually made mention of this earlier, but you did not mention this specific team. The Lions, are they the best worst team?
They're a good team. You know what? I take that hard. I have made the most money this year on Detroit and the Commanders. They have been my money makers. Okay, so I like the Lions. I will say this: I think Jared Goff is grossly underrated.
I
Uh,
agree. I
very,
agree.
very underrated. Look, they haven't been great on the road in his tenure in Detroit, and I get that and all that kind of stuff. He's playing games at one point. They just traded his tight end. He had no Amon-Ra St. Brown. DeAndre Swift was hurt. He had no receivers. They brought in a guy named Brandon Zylstra and Shane Zylstra because they needed a receiver and they needed a tight end. Okay, still winning games. Still winning games. They took the Bills to a 3-point loss.
Yes.
They're scoring points. They dominated the Jags. I don't know why that spread was the way it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars because they had a good win against the Baltimore Ravens, who have blown nothing but 2-score leads in the fourth quarter all season at home. You go to Detroit is I think they're a good team. They started the year so bad,
but good.
that their playoffs are in jeopardy because when you look at they lose by 3 to the Eagles, they lose to I think that was the Commanders early on, or they lost a couple games, and they lost to the Vikings. They were up against the Vikings
Yep.
by 14 and by 10, and they not finished that game off. So they started the season off terribly. They're still in a playoff position, but now they got to win every week. One thing I will say I like Jared Goff, Dan Campbell. He makes me want to run through a brick wall. So I think the team really responds to him.
Of Brian Daboll. I mean, he played in Detroit, so he's allowed to. He knows how to embody Detroit, but he is Detroit's Brian Daboll, 100%.
1,000%. And the thing with Dan Campbell too, people forget like he played for a few head coaches in his time, including one very great, Bill Parcells.
Yep.
And he really embodies the Bill Parcells type of tough attitude. We're gonna dirty this game up. We're gonna grind our way to victories. We're never out of it. This is a team that I will never see under him ever losing games to Tank. That's not in the DNA. The Lions are always in it. That's why, for me, they're always a bet, especially. So Commanders in the last couple of weeks have not been a play. This week they were on the money line. When teams start laying points, I start to not be on them anymore. But right now, the Lions are still good value. Favored this week. I mean, if you want to go against Kirk Cousins in the morning, favor this week in Detroit. So it's a good. To me, they're a good team. They're not even a good bad team. They're a good team. They started out so bad. It's going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, my last point I will say about the Lions is I don't know if you've seen the videos of Jamal Williams dancing. I want to throw a dance party with him. It seems like no matter what, the guy is on the sidelines doing some weird dance, but I dance battle. I think I would take him on. And
I like Jamal Williams. I like what it's everywhere he's gone. He's the backup. Everywhere he's gone, he's like he's the backup guy. Man, he really this year. I mean, I bet him. He was one of my best props last week. Scored touchdown, scored on the first drive. He's really earning his stripes, and I think what's going to eventually happen is that Detroit's going to use a 2-back system, much like what the Cowboys do with Pollard and Zeke. I think there's a home for both of those guys in Detroit, and to be a really good team. They lost Hawkinson, which I thought was
upsetting.
A 4th-year guy, and you traded him to your division. Like that was kind of a weird mix for me, but I think Detroit's going to be okay. I like Jamal Williams. He's been a stud. If you have him on fantasy this year, he's multiple touchdowns like in 6 games. So if you're in the playoffs, he's going to help you out.
But for She's Game Obsessed, that was our Week 13 review. I am, of course, joined with Reno Jonny. All of his links will be down below. And I'll be back on Thursday to preview some Week 14 games. We're almost to the end, and it is very sad. But for now, guys, I'll see you.